Welcome back to our Confirmation Clash special. Let's get right into the clash part. How will the Senate greet Neil Gorsuch's nomination tomorrow? Back with us, MSNBC political analyst Howard Fineman from the Huffington Post, former Republican senator from Texas, Kay Bailey Hutchison, and Brian Darling, a former Senate aide to Rand Paul. Our first question is from Twitter. Okay, folks, well, you guys have been tweeting #@thepoint about SCOTUS, and I have one. Howard, I'm going to ask you. Yes. Susan Burke asked point blank, why do the Republicans get to fill a vacancy on the court that they stole from Obama?
Well, I think she's encapsulating the sentiment, as Pete Williams was saying, of a lot of Democrats in the Senate. They do feel that they were denied the right and the opportunity to at least hold hearings on and have a vote on Merrick Garland. I've known Merrick Garland for many, many years. I think everybody in the city of Washington knows him, thinks him as a model of probity and caution as a judge, and that made it even more outrageous in the minds of Democrats that Barack Obama had put up a relative moderate, and yet he too was denied the opportunity. But now the Democrats face a very difficult choice. As I was saying earlier in the hour, they have to decide whether they think they can and should. Mitch McConnell has to decide whether he can or should woo Democrats, or whether the Democrats themselves are going to hold the line and force Mitch McConnell to do what I think he doesn't want to do, which is to blow up the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees. If the Democrats allow that to happen, then, as Nina said earlier, you've got the highway open and paved for future Trump nominees.
Right, and that's
so they have to decide when they want to make their stand. Is it now with somebody who is, I think, by many estimations, an acceptable nominee given the circumstances of a Trump presidency?
Right.
Do they accept Gorsuch, or do they make their stand right now? I would predict that the pressure on the Democrats to make their stand now is probably going to result in the Pyrrhic victory of McConnell abolishing filibusters for Supreme Court nominees.
Senator, and then Brian. Senator, go ahead. What do you think?
Oh, I think that what's been said is exactly right from the standpoint of when the Democrats decide to oppose a nominee. The Democrats broke the rule, changed the rule for filibusters on the lower courts, and so they've set a precedent, and I think now that precedent will be invoked if they decide to go against someone who's clearly qualified and clearly a superb choice.
And Brian, on this point, the Republicans have been pretty clear about what's going to happen. Donald Trump basically said, yep, bring it. Here he was saying what his advice to Mitch would be.
If we end up with the same gridlock that they've had in Washington for the last longer than 8 years, in all fairness to President Obama, a lot longer than 8 years, but if we end up with that gridlock, I would say, if you can, Mitch, go nuclear, because that would be an absolute shame if a man of this quality was caught up in the web. So I would say it's up to Mitch, but I would say go for it.
Brian?
Just like in war, the nuclear option should always be the last option. I'm not a fan of blowing up the filibuster, but it is inconsistent that the Democrats did blow up the filibuster in every nomination with the exception of the Supreme Court. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if the Senate did get rid of the filibuster and Supreme Court nominees. But we're not there yet. I mean, there are ways that you can grind down the Democrats. You could force a talking filibuster. Democrats want to stretch this out, make them go to the Senate floor and actually talk until they can't talk anymore, use a two-speech rule. There are procedures that can be used. Now, one thing I think we heard earlier in the show was Senator Blumenthal saying he wants to use a filibuster and every other power that he has. You know what that means? I think the Democrats are going to start invoking the 2-hour rule. They're going to try and go after this process in committee to stretch it out. They'll say that they don't have all the paperwork back. They need to look more into Neil Gorsuch's time at the Justice Department and get more memos and more information about what he actually did with some issues that were reasonably controversial. So I think ultimately the Democrats are going to need a controversy if they're going to beat this nomination. They don't have one yet. They're going to have to manufacture one. So look out over the next few days to see if they can start that process.
Well, and Senator, you've been on the inside of this process. Does it work? Do you feel, as a senator, you learned more and were able to make better decisions, or is it, as so many guests have said today, a scripted political fight?
Well, I think that in the normal processes, you really don't learn that much. And if a person is qualified going in and doesn't make some huge mistake, or something comes out, which is very unlikely in this situation, that would be dispositive, I think that you're not going to see a change. But the reason that you go through the process is because there may be that bombshell, and of course the Democrats are hoping to find something, but I don't think they have. They've done a thorough job already of vetting, and you've seen the things come out. But this judge is in the mainstream, and it's going to be very difficult, I think, to rough him up enough that he would lose the votes of the Republicans at least.
To lose the coalition.
And my guess is some of the Democrats are going to end up voting for him.
Perhaps, or as they say on Twitter, per snaps. Senator Hutchison and Brian Darling, thank you so much. Howard Fineman, stay with me because we're going to talk Russia in a minute.